computer. So now it is recording, and I don't know where the file is going to go. That's why we're doing this little experiment.
Okay.
So, you know, what we want to do is what you wanted to do, what I wanted to do with you was to talk about Lengbeyer's text, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
You wanna do it on on Zoom, or do you want to stay on the phone too?
no, let's do it on Zoom, because then I can keep it. It would be totally private unless you tell me it's okay to advertise you as a, as a contributor to ethics and philosophy with Dr. Gendre, which is fine. Either way, I don't care. But I mean, you're a decent student, more than decent. All right. So
Okay.
I think you should not have any qualms about being seen as not so competent. You are very competent.
Okay.
But I still think we need to flesh it out for all students. So if that's okay with you, we'll do it. And then we decide if we publish it or not. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So actually, you know what? I need to increase the volume because you're very low. And where is my control here? Okay, I can see it. Okay. Color, contrast, brightness. That's not what I want. I want, for some reason, the mic, the sound does not pop up on my thing right
Down, is it like if it's an older computer, is it down in like the right hand corner?
Yeah, well, right. Well, I'm there, and I just can't see it. It's, oh darn. And then the mouse. Okay, the mouse is. Can you still hear me? Yes,
Yeah.
I see the light, so that means you're seeing me.
Yep.
Okay, balanced. Okay. Do I see speaker here? Yes, I see speaker here. All right, so I did find the speaker. Oh, wow, sounds very good. Okay, much better. So I hear you. I'm going back to Zoom. I'm going back to Zoom, and then I see you. Okay. So, obviously I would edit this out, okay, if I can. If I can. My editing software for Adobe. Are you familiar with Adobe, by the way?
I had used Adobe Flash in high school, but I don't really remember how to do any of that stuff. But I know I know
Okay,
of it.
you know a little bit. What is a competitor to Adobe? Because Adobe is pretty sophisticated and heavy on a computer. You know of any?
Not that I know of, no.
Okay.
I'm to be honest, I'm not a huge computer guy. This is my first computer I've ever owned, so.
Yeah, okay. That's fine. Look, I know some people, I became fairly, not very computer literate because I had to do these videos, and then I went to Bev Camp in Beverly, and they taught me, and it's amazing. The stuff you can do is quite amazing. However, without any editing software, it's going to be a little harder for me. So let's just continue. So essentially, our purpose is to explain Lengbeyer and how to use Lengbeyer, and to be also critical, a little bit critical, okay? Not trashing Lengbeyer, but saying to Lengbeyer, Professor Lengbeyer, maybe we need to, or it would be helpful for us to use a different word than the word
what's the word? It's, see, I told you the memory thing is not working too good.
No. It is working good. It is working good, Danny. It is working good. You're less than half my age, so you have to have good neurons there. So how about your book? Do you have the book?
I can go and get it right now.
Well, why don't you do that? And I'll do the same. Okay, I'll do the same. I'll go get the book.
All right.
All right, I just sat down myself with the books. I have the newer version of it, which is the 9th edition, and this is the 8th edition. And since you're a business major, I think, right? You told me.
Yeah.
So if you want to make money, I also want to make money.
Oh, actually, Dr. Gendre, I just realized I grabbed my English book instead.
Oh, but keep
So
it around, because I want to see what they're teaching you in English.
Okay, I'll go get the other one real quick.
Okay, go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, now I got the new one. Now I got it.
Very good. You know what? What you showed me is very interesting. I would like to discuss this post-colonialism thing, because in my view, this is one approach, but certainly by no means should be the only approach to English lit,
Okay.
or American lit. Let's just call it Anglo-American lit. How about that?
Perfect.
You know, if we start changing words just a little bit, we're going to be fine. But if we allow these people to just define the agenda as only post-colonial and imply that America is a big colonial power, which in some respects it might be. And by the way, this is in my book. Okay, this is in my book. I really, I really want to insist on this. Maybe I should do a Zoom session on this. Chapter 16, Imperialism as a Threat to American Governance. This is page 119. Okay, 119 to 127. Okay. Imperialism as a threat to American governance. Okay, I would view, Danny, my chapter as a, I wouldn't say counter punch, but as most likely a countering argument to the post-colonial ideology of the people who I am sure, or I'm 99% sure, put together your book, the one you just showed me, Post-Colonialism.
Oh, okay.
And I can explain to you why, and maybe we'll do a podcast on this, or some sort of maybe let's call it a internet cafe with me, Dr. Gendre, and Ingrid, and Dr. Madden. So it's not only me, but it's people who can think a little beyond the usual box, the usual groupthink box, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So in any event, so I have your.
Yeah.
Okay, I have it in front of me. So tomorrow, Thursday, we will be talking about market is the best engine for conflict resolution. And I am going to change it, or I'm going to say we're going to discuss 2 chapters. We're going to discuss chapter 9, and we're going to discuss chapter 16, because I really want to address this question of imperialism. To me, it's very important, because there's 2 ways of looking at imperialism. One is the sort of usual traditional European, more or less European way. And there is the American way, or the old English way, if it became, see, the English were taught a lesson by the Americans, for sure, okay? That lesson was repeated by the Indians much later. And they could not establish a sort of world control over the globe in the way in which the traditional powers were envisioning doing it, especially Caesar. First of all, Alexander, then Caesar, then Napoleon, and the rest. So I think this is very important to discuss. And my chapter, I think, is very important. It's probably, and I've said it a few times, it was the hardest chapter to write in this book for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And the reason was I had to figure out that there are two types of empires. You have what is, I use the term coming from, this is obviously on page at the end. So this is on page 126, okay? Footnote number 2, 126 page, and footnote number 2. Footnote number 2 on 126, it says the contrast between formal and informal empires was developed in the important article by John Gallagher and Ronald Robinson, The Imperialism of Free Trade. Okay, so this is something obviously you can find online. So what did these two British authors contrast? They contrasted the empires of domination and regulation and conquest. Okay, this is the formal empire, the formal empire. Like Napoleon wanted to have one. He had to have one that way. He had to control everything, prices, and you can build these ships. You cannot build that stuff. You have to do this here. You have to do that here. And this is, by the way, what the European Union is. The European Union is a sort of replica, a modern replica of the Napoleon way of organizing Europe, right?
Oh.
Because they put out of business all kinds of people. It's shocking and disgusting and immoral. I mean, ethically immoral. But of course, they have the power of writing laws, and they're not accounting to anybody because they're not elected. Okay. So that makes it a formal bad empire. Okay. By contrast, if you take the original idea of free trade between, say, England and the colonies. Let's say the colonies became free from England, but so they're English speaking, they can converse, they are, they have the same culture more or less, but they have different interests and they have different circumstances. And so they can trade within one another, say England, America, India, Australia, South Africa, maybe the middle of Africa, and then maybe middle of Africa, Brazil. Why not? Why not? And that is the informal empire. Okay. Right? Because they're based on these, it's like free trade. You make a contract, you have to honor the contract. If you don't honor the contract, well, we're gonna have to go to court or do something because can't go on with this thing, constantly happening. Now, it is because of this informal structure, but it's not loose. It's somewhat structured. Mm-hmm. It's because of that informal structure that wealth can be created. See, wealth cannot be created only through the formal empires of say Caesar or the traditional Roman Empire or Napoleon. It just cannot. It's just there are too many directives coming from the center and then telling the parts, hey, you can only do this. And if you want to trade, like the big Bastiat was a Frenchman who died in 1850. He's a truly exceptional individual. And he and another man in England by the name of, I'm just blanking out on the name, but I believe it's at the end of chapter. Well, it's not popping up, but there's Bastiat and an Englishman. And they figured out that if you have free trade, meaning you open up the markets of the south of France and for wine, let's say it's wine because it's just very good there and grows easily. All the production can be done very easily. And say the cotton mills and the mills, the linen mills, all the fabric mills of England. And if you open up to trade, they will figure out the best price, and the English will have wine, which they cannot grow, and the French and the rest will have linens, which otherwise they would not have. In other words, wealth is created through this informal empire. You follow me?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And therefore you don't want too much regulation in an informal empire, right?
Yep.
By contrast, if you take the formal empire as they're creating, like Nazi Germany, Soviet Union, or or even the European Union is really one of them. The European Union, they tell the people in whatever part of the European Union that they control, oh, you want to do this? Oh, by the way, you can't, because we want it done in Portugal. Or, like you have orange groves in the south of France. Sorry, you can't anymore because of the fact that we want it grown in Spain and Portugal. So now these people who would have maybe lower quality items in France than or olives, let's just say olives, the same thing. And these people can no longer grow their oranges or their olives, or or whatever the European Union decides is better done in Greece, or is better done in Portugal, or is better done in England. That's the way it is. So they really cut, they really clamp down on freedom of, if the product is not very good in France, well,
let's put it.
Then deal with it, right?
Yeah.
You see? So this is a very important contrast, right? And ultimately it boils down to colonies. Okay? Who are what are the colonies? Well, I would submit that the colonies are what we know, which is originally the states. The states before becoming the United States were colonies, right?
Yeah.
But they had to sever themselves from the mother country, which was becoming too much of a formal empire, right?
Yeah.
And therefore, clamping down and doing things that are tyrannical, that take away your livelihood, because they say in London, oh, you've got to buy our tea, the tea we imported from India, and you've got to pay the tax, and screw you if you don't like it, right?
Yep.
And this is how the American Revolution began, is by saying, hey, we have no representation in London, we don't like your tax, and screw you.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
You see? And the same type of thinking applies to, say, India. Take India. Why would they have to have to import linens manufactured in England? Right?
Yeah.
And so at some point they said, hey, yes, you've helped us maybe with your language, which unifies India in some respect. But we want to be independent. We want to trade our own way, and you're not going to help us do this. We need to help ourselves. Now there's still a Commonwealth. The British Commonwealth is not 100% bad. I mean, I think it has some good things, but it should not be seen as an empire. It's an informal empire. So Canada, New Zealand, Australia, India, all the rest, there are plenty of countries that are part of that informal empire. But America also has essentially formed an informal empire, right? Because if you have trade agreements between the US and Canada, the US and Mexico, the US and Japan, the US and China, the US and Europe, France or England, which of course there is one with England, then you have a sort of empire of trade, right? You see, it's an empire of trade. So you want a job when you're fully awake, you want a job in England, you can get a job in England. Right?
Exactly, yeah.
You can get a job in England because there is a sort of mutual agreement type of thing, right? Isn't that interesting though?
Yeah, that is.
And that's the key. So your book, The Post-Colonial Thing, I am pretty sure is written by leftists who I would like to really, figure out, because it's typical. America is a post-colonial country for sure, yeah. But it also has had the ability to form an empire of informal connections, right?
Exactly, yes.
Okay, and even you can make the case, and I'm willing to make the case, that the federal government only enables the states to function as best they can. In other words, the federal government should be seen as a sort of informal way to foster wealth creation. And if you see it that way, then there is no gripe, no bitching about the Western world doing some sort of post-colonial era, which, by the way, started way before
Exactly.
they think. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, yes, I do.
Yeah. So that's the thing. So now we're going to segue to the absolutism thing. So Lengbeyer, in my view, does a good job. Okay, he does a good job. I'm not debating the fact that he's honest. He's very honest in his approach. Now it's on page 106 in my book. I don't know what page it's on yours. In yours. But you remember the key term we started from is, okay, his term, his solution is pluralism. Right, Lengbeyer?
What page you say? 101?
Okay, in my book, it's 106.
Oh, okay.
In this book, it's...
Oh, yeah, I found it. Yep.
You have it? Okay.
Yep.
In this book, which is the 8th edition, it is on page Lengbeyer 98. Which one are you, 98 or 106?
No, 106. I have this
106. Okay, so you have the newer version. Yeah, that's fine. You have the 9th. Okay, so his solution to the predicament, and we have two terms in the predicament, his solution is?
Where is
The
it?
alternative to moral relativism is? What is his solution, his key term solution? It should be in the title, basically.
Oh, and alternative, excuse me, an alternative to moral relativism.
And what is, okay, so the question is simple, is simply,
Yeah.
what is the alternative to moral relativism? There's only one term.
Not too sure, to be honest with you. Is it in this?
Okay.
Does it say, oh, pluralism?
Yes!
Yes.
Pluralism, right? All right, so you see what I'm getting at is the title is not good enough. The title given by Christina Huff Summers and Fred Summers, these titles, okay, these titles for the text are given by the people who put the anthology together, right?
Uh-huh.
So if I were, or if you and I, or if you and others and I were to make a better anthology, we would certainly change the title here.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And we would say pluralism as the alternative to moral relativism and what's the other term?
Oh, there's another term. I have the pluralism and then moral relativism, and then this is the one that we talked about on the phone. Gibler? No, am I looking at the wrong thing?
Sorry.
Oh, absolutism.
Right. Okay. So now we can write a new title for this essay, right?
Yeah.
We, as the editors of this new book, okay, you and I, okay, it's just hypothetical, okay?
Yeah.
Hypothetical. You and I and others, as the editors of an anthology, would actually come up with a better title than an alternative to moral relativism. We will say pluralism, comma, the alternative to ethical moral relativism and absolutism, both, okay?
Yep.
Okay, so then in one sentence, you have three terms. You have two bad terms, relativism and okay, see, now I'm getting into a little bit of a quagmire, simply because he uses the word not absolutism, but the word objectivism. So this is where we have to address the issue. We have to address the issue and say, in a, maybe we need to write it slightly differently, in the sense that pluralism is clearly the term we have to have. So pluralism, the alternative to moral relativism and absolutism / objectivism, because he uses the word objectivism. So this is the whole point of our discussion, is to introduce the word objectivism as a better term than the word objectivism, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I think we want to do is say, in an intro paragraph, this is a worthy text, an interesting text. The scholar is fine, generally has the right ideas. However, there is one term that could be altered or changed or amended. And we, as the editors of this new book, propose to you, the readers, the students, that in addition to, or in lieu of, instead of objectivism, we're going to put absolutism. And we're going to explain why absolutism is better than objectivism, although objectivism maybe is also okay.
Yeah.
Right? And the reason why it's also okay is because we have to explain what the word objectivism in American culture, or in the American landscape, in the American academic sphere, objectivism would have two possible meanings. Okay? One possible meaning is the one that he seems to absorb, or sort of imply. He implies a sort of theological objectivism. Okay, so I'm just fleshing this out. Okay, so the vast majority of people, not the vast majority, but a very good number of people who, when they're presented with very firm, strict, definitive views on ethics, they say, it's coming from these religious bigots, right?
Mm.
Okay. And these people say you've got to do it this way, because if you don't do it that way, you're going to be opposing, going against the laws of human nature. Now, in some respects, they do have a point, that some people do terrible things that are not according to nature, like killing your father, move away, or your friend, you have a disagreement with a friend, well, no longer call this person a friend, just move away. So you don't commit something that is unethical. I mean, killing somebody in anger is not right. Okay, so the theological people, the theologians, they would say, there is a, firm law that says thou shalt not kill. Well, right, it's true. It's true. It's also true that in self-defense, you have to kill if you must, right? Yeah. So the nature of an action is not what defines the action as bad. It's the circumstances and the intention, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, that's one part of the objectivism thing, that there's a theologian or theological strictness that a lot of people just don't like at all, okay? And by the way, Lisa Romano kind of addressed this in the thing that, I don't know if you watched it, but you can watch it. The other meaning of objectivism is the Ayn Rand libertarianism, okay? And that is most likely where Lengbeyer takes his term, because Ayn Rand, who was totally anti-theological, okay, this woman was an atheist, totally anti-theological, but she was at the same time a very strict believer in freedom, such that my freedom is a paramount. It's an absolute objective. I have to keep it, and anybody telling me something else, coming from either the theological individuals or from the socialist ones who make the state into a god, she's totally opposed to that, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So she has a very strong absolutist view of my freedom is my freedom, it cannot be negotiated, and so on and so forth. Which means that potentially generosity, altruism, altruism cannot really be fleshed out, cannot be expressed in her philosophy. It's like, okay, you want to do it, you're free to do it, so do it, but don't say anything, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I've kind of thrown in a third objectivist or absolutist thing, which is the state, right? So I'm ending up with three absolutist or objectivist views. Let me show them to you as I jotted them down, right? You can read them?
Oh, okay. I wrote that second one really different than that.
Okay, that's fine. So what did you write, the second one? I wrote the name of Ayn Rand.
Yeah, I didn't know what that was, so I spelled it like totally wrong.
That's fine. That's okay. That's okay, Danny. You're here to learn, and I'm here to teach. That's okay. Okay. Look, she's in our book. She's a good person. I mean, she's not a bad person. She's definitely not a bad person. She's in our book somewhere. Let me find her. She was highly influential in America.
Oh, really?
She's on page 168 in our book. Okay, so this is just an aside. Okay, let's just not go there. But you see, now we ended up with three views of absolutism and objectivism. So we have the theological strictness of the people who, it's almost like sex. Saying, I will excommunicate you if you marry your sweetheart and have sex before, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Ayn Rand, who says, hey, shut the F up and, just let me live my life. If I want to have consensual sex, that's okay, and you don't tell me anything. I don't
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not gonna. Yeah.
Then you also have the statists who say, we're going to define everything for you. The socialists, they think they know everything for you. So in a way, they're objective. They have an objectivist approach that it's objective, right? It's objective. Yeah. It's like we're not inventing it; it's the real nature of things, right? Well, I think that the key term, the better term is absolutism, because they're all absolutist in their my way or the highway kind of thing, right?
Yeah. So they're kind of one-minded kind of people.
Yes, correct. Okay. Now, on this basis, I think the word absolutism is a better term, and it does not negate the word objectivism, but it just makes it a little more subdued. Okay, mm-hmm. Because knowing it all, this is the arrogance of some people. They know it all. They absolutely know it all, and they think they can impose their supposed knowledge on everyone else. Okay, now that's one part of the dilemma, that you have these people that are absolutists, but you also have people who, as young people, typically are. It's difficult to figure all that stuff out. So their fallback position, it's relativism is the fallback position. Let's just call it what it is, the fallback position, because as you allow other people to have their opinions, you're not embroiled, okay? You're not part of the fight, okay? Yep. So the fallback position is typically whatever, right? And it's relativism, but it doesn't last very, very long. If you are, if you care about your life, if you care about your money, if you care about, your house, if you care about your kids, if you care about your parents, if you care about your house, your car, anything, your ability to drive, your ability to have a job, you cannot be a relativist like whatever. No, that will not fly.
Yeah.
That will not fly. So the relativism thing, like, oh, everything is fine, is not fine, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so the fallback position, the one shared most by, young people,
So
has
relative.
to be overcome. So we
Mm-hmm.
have these two extremes: absolutism backslash objectivism, and relativism backslash subjectivism, because it's all subjective, right? So if you say that everything is relative, well, that means everything is subjective. It's up to the individual, or it's up to this group. This group wants to do it this way. They want to rape kids. Oh, well, what am I to do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's pretty horrific what this relativism thing does. So basically, since we hold these two things at bay, absolutism, objectivism on the one hand, and the relativism, subjectivism on the other, and you notice that now we have four terms, right? As
Mhm.
I'm brainstorming with you, we have four terms. Five. We have
Yeah, five.
pluralism in the middle. We have absolutism, objectivism on the one hand, and we have relativism, subjectivism on the other. We have five terms.
Yeah.
And therefore, we should have the five terms in the title.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
So now, basically, the question is, how do you organize a pluralistic approach to the world? Okay, you want to be a business person. I mean, you obviously understand that not everyone in the business world should be doing the same thing as you do.
Exactly.
How can you trade anything of value if they're all doing the same thing, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Everyone has their own things to bring to the table and
That's
stuff like that.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. So everyone has their own things to bring to the table. And by the word things, you mean what? Let's just.
Like their own skills.
That's right.
Yeah.
And their own skills will develop some goods in some certain cases, like, like producing vegetables, or I don't know, copper pipes, or I don't know, oil. No, this
Exactly.
is not oil.
That's vinegar,
That's
right?
balsamic vinegar.
Yep.
Okay. So, these people will produce a product, or produce or a product, and others will deliver a service, right?
Yep.
Like consulting with a medical doctor, he's not producing a product or produce for you. He's giving you advice, and then the service is what will make you healthier, and you value that because your health is of extreme value to you.
Exactly.
Likewise, music. What kind of music do you like?
To be honest, I listen to literally every type of music. I listen to music from the 50s to the today's music. Because I just grew up, my family, like my parents, they listen to, like, they were big 70s people when I was really little. And then my dad loves 50s, so I just jump around from like everything.
So, for example, if I quiz you, I mean, just for fun, do you know Elton John? I mean, this is
Of course I know Elton John.
right. So, what song from Elton John would you like to hear if we sort of we're hanging out?
My favorite is either Tiny Dancer or I like Goodbye Yellow Brick Road.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Um, what's the other one? What did you say? Oh yeah, Crocodile Rock.
Oh, Crocodile Rock. It's pretty good. Yeah,
Yeah, I forgot about that one.
Crocodile Rock.
I'm actually a big Billy Joel guy. That's my favorite.
Oh, Billy Joel is
I
good
actually
too.
saw him in concert this summer.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
He's
at
coming.
Fenway Park.
Oh, where about? I didn't know that.
It was at it, he has a concert every single summer at Fenway Park.
Okay, right. So he's talking about this coming summer too?
I don't think I haven't heard anything about him
Okay.
canceling it, but I
Okay.
also didn't hear anything about
Well,
him.
hopefully at some point this nonsense, I mean, this scare will be over. Okay, so you talked to me about Yellow Brick Road, Tiny Dancer, Crocodile Rock, and they're pretty. There are a number of good things. Now, the only way you will enjoy this is you understand that, or Billy Joel, they provide a service. That performance is a performance. The performance is a service. Look, they're the only ones that can do these things. So you're willing to give some money to go listen to Billy Joel or to go listen to Elton John. He's still doing things, by the way. I know.
Elton John?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought he
retired, but then they always retire and then they come back.
That is true. I was gonna say, because I saw this thing. I was gonna go to. I really wanted to do like when they had the Elton Joel, Billy Joel concert, like that when they were.
Yeah, right.
I've always wanted to go to that, but they said last year was his last one.
Right. Right. And it's good to then explore what it is that Elton John has done over time, because he's been singing with a lot of very good singers. George Michael is one that I know he has performed with. He has performed with a couple of top-notch French singers. Charles Aznavour is one, and then Franz Gall. Gall. So if you do a YouTube thing, you will find these things. So as a result of your interest in, say, this type of music, you can actually broaden your understanding of the different genres of music and the different singers that, for example, Elton John has been performing with, because they are very good ones. I mean, really good ones. And surprisingly, he speaks. I mean, his French is pretty good. I was surprised. I listened to him sing with Aznavour and Franz Gall, and he's very good. So all of this adds up to a pluralism of things, of options, right? I mean, if you like Elton John performing with Billy Joel better than performing with George Michael, you would rate him, right?
Exactly.
And, there's nothing I can say to you against that. I would say, okay, I prefer him singing with whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a bunch of plural options that are given to us, right? But me performing in front of on a stage with 500,000 people, I can't do it, right? So I'd be horrible. and I don't want to bring you in, but maybe you could not perform also.
Yeah.
So obviously, there are people who are more gifted or more capable of doing things. And by the way, Elton John could not maybe do what I'm doing right now. Right?
Yeah, maybe not.
Right. So that's the gist. The gist is essentially life is well understood. Life is not strictly objectivism and absolutism, nor is it relativism and highfalutin subjectivism. It's sort of in between, and we navigate between these plural options.
Yes.
Okay. And so your ability to develop your skills and bring your goods and services to the table is part of this entire view of things. Make sense?
Yes, it does actually.
All right, so now you have one simple assignment, which is jot it all down.
Exactly. I got it all down here on my piece of paper, so I'm all ready to go.
Fantastic. And I don't know for how long this has been going on. I would say probably almost 40 minutes or
40 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So if I get royalties, I'll share them with you. Okay, how about that?
Sure. And then I just had a quick question.
Yeah.
So this assignment thing that I'm doing,
yeah.
You know how I missed that one assignment? Is this?
Yeah. Well, that will be this interaction between you and me.
Yeah.
The writing down will take care of that.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And tell your dad he has good, or your parents, they have good taste with Elton John. That's for sure.
I will.
Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording. Hold on. Stop.